Hi everyone, can you hear me all right? And yeah, don't worry, it's almost a break, just a little longer. And yeah, as far as I understood, there should be one AI talk here at the white venue, like won't be happy with us, so here it is. So today we're going to talk about AI, a very general term. I'll try to make it a bit more specific. I'll walk you through some of the business applications that I see in the industry and that our company sees in the industry. Give some, very specific examples to otherwise very fuzzy kind of definition. And we'll also talk about some of the complexities we see, like why not everyone's AI-driven yet. And I work as director of engineering in Datarobot, which is an end-to-end AI platform, and I have also a background of ML engineering, so hopefully this will help here. So let's start with definitions. What is AI? So you may know it's artificial intelligence, right? Not this one, maybe in future, not yet. I like this picture, it's also like Terminator face, but that's when I was back in the academia and we were working on some computer vision problems, like understanding where you are in the scene, like for example, Roombas use it to know where they are inside of your apartment. We had a bunch of cameras and we rolled it around the office. At first it was very clumsy. But this is an example of AI. So I kind of like this definition, that it just leverages, it's something that leverages computers and machines to mimic how humans make decisions. And that's ultimately the goal, right? We want to solve some problems, we want to make some decisions. And we're not talking about general AI, as in, complete artificial intelligence, human-like mind. We're not there yet. I don't know how far we are, depends on who you ask. We're talking about narrow AIs, so it's AIs that solve some very specific problem. In some cases, very simple problem. But again, we don't need to do this. AI does it for us. So some of the examples, very classic one. I mean, a lot of these are actually classic ones, but I kind of want us to have the same baseline to understand what's out there in different industries. So, like, will a customer call to complain soon? And like, why do we care, right? Because if customers complain, there's very likely that they churn. And if we know beforehand that, hey, this might have a potential to complain, and if we reach out to them preemptively, maybe fix their problems, maybe fix their concerns, maybe they don't churn, or at least a smaller percentage of them will churn. That's already better for the business. And furthermore, not everyone calls. Some people, they're angry, they start calling, they show they're very vocal, they're angry. Not everyone's like that. Some people just silently leave your business. That's not a nice thing for us. Very common in the financial industries is, hey, is this wire transfer fraudulent? And it used to be very simple, I'd say earlier, right? I remember even a few years ago when I was traveling to a different country, I had to notify my bank, otherwise they just automatically block everything from my country. It was kind of simple. These days it's not like this, and it's much, much more complex. And the amount of transactions that happen is huge. It's just impossible for a person to have a look at it, or a bunch of people. So again, we automate it, and if there's a bunch of high probabilities for a wire, then maybe we review it additionally, maybe we require some extra proof, maybe we ask for some PIN codes, and so on. Yeah, not a new use case, it's been around for a while. Let's say again, banking industries, financials, if you have loan applications, are these fraudulent loans? And you can analyze the text, all the data, maybe it's a copy-paste, maybe there's a sentiment is wrong. I read a story from the local bank, they were analyzing and actually running it in computer vision, and they found a person who had like 60 different credit cards, and it was all the same person, just coming to different locations and getting this. So again, I think every bank has some amount of misleading loans that will ultimately default, and if they're analyzed better, then maybe they won't, or a smaller percentage. Again, great for the business. As with the previous one, I can ask for more information. We can maybe investigate further, have some extra sessions with the person and so on. Another one, let's say healthcare in this example. We have hospitals, right? They need people to run. But how many people you need? How do you staff it? And then one of the answers here is that it actually depends on how many patients are you going to get. So if you can predict how many patients you're going to get at a given day, you can very easily know how many medical staff you need in there. And patients in the hospital is actually also a classical time series problem, right? There's some monotonicity, probably during day hours there are more people than during night hours. If, number of patients today is probably very likely to be similar to what happened yesterday. There's kind of this lags and trailing information. And then of course also calendar events matter. I think during New Year's is one of the busiest nights in ERs. So knowing this information beforehand, your model can very, very accurately, very nicely predict how many people you need. This one's a bit abstract, but in a second we'll go into more specific example. Again, you have very complex machinery. It has hundreds of sensors, and you need to know, okay, maybe some parts don't behave as well, and it's not broken yet, but the capacity is down. So if you know which parts are potential candidates for replacement, then it's quicker to troubleshoot, you need less staff on the site, and so on. But I have one more that's a bit more interesting in this regard. And then before it's also very classic, like lead classification for sales, which can be like if you're calling someone, how likely is that it's going to be a sale, or it can be a cold email, or it can be follow-up after event like this one. Of course, it makes sense to prioritize leads that are more likely to close. If it's something, you have a large amount of leads coming in maybe every day or weekly, again, you can reassign this to your call center reps. And again, start with the ones that are very likely to lose. And that's the last use case I have here, but it's the one I personally very kind of was committed to because our company worked on it. We were working with an organization, and like the initiative was called AI for Good, and there was a lot of there are a lot of water points in Africa, in various African countries, and they malfunction, right? And the use case is predictive maintenance. So which ones do we think are going to break soon? So we can send out maintenance there before they break, and so there's no downtime. There's steady stream of water, so to say. And it was a very successful use case. It's not in any way a super complex machine learning problem, but it's something that has a very big impact for people's lives. And one of the sub-problems of this one was information about different thousands of water points was incomplete. And of course, to better predict when they're going to break, we need to know which ones it is. There are tens of different kinds from different manufacturers. And one of the sub-problems we attacked is, hey, we have these pictures from local people of these water points. How can we just say from this picture what kind of brand is it, and then use this information in the downstream model? And again, not a very hard computer vision problem per se, but one that's very impactful. And to make things even harder, these are not professional photography. This is a good picture. I picked one for presentation. Most of them are even more blurry. It's not the latest iPhones that we use to take them. So, some of it just absolutely random stuff that we need to filter out. So you can also use a normal detection model on top of that. But yes, in the end, using a combination of different machine learning models, including computer vision, you can actually use it for good. So some of the complexities, you see, a lot of problems can be solved by, at least partially, by machine learning. Why not every organization is AI driven? So that's what we want to go, right? We have some data, we want to get value. Without value, why are we doing anything? Without data, usually we also can't really do much in the world of machine learning. But the path isn't always good. So some complexities are operational. If you want to do machine learning, you need people who know how to do machine learning. Right? And the hiring market for data scientists and machine learning engineers, for engineering in general, the hiring market is pretty tough. For this, it's a it seems even harder. And there are like a ton of job openings throughout the world. And even when you hire people, you have to align them with the with the business product. And again, it's kind of a general problem for the engineering, at least the way I can see. So engineers do things that matter for the business. With machine learning, it's also, I'd say, a bit harder. So extra attention is needed there. Like, again, your AIs shouldn't be there just because there's a new fancy paper on Google or OpenAI. It needs to solve some very specific business problem that your organization needs to solve. Even when the model is there and everything's good, how do you govern it? And how, like, what's the compliance? Like, financial institution can't just say, hey, yeah, we denied the loan for some reason. Our black box voodoo machine told us to. It needs to have, very specific documents and explanations, especially in highly regulated areas. And then there are some technical problems that are kind of obvious, but also hard to fix, right? So you need data. So how do you gather data? Do you have some pipelines throughout the organization with the data flow? How do you make sure it's still there? How do you make sure it's continuous? And then not all the data is annotated. Sometimes you need to annotate it. How do you do that? Of course, building models, but in lots of problems, it's actually the simplest step, at least what I see. Of course, you can have more complicated stuff, like if it's a time series data, it usually needs very special handling, and it needs to have people who know how to work with this particular kind of data. Kind of same for images. I could put text in there. Text is very popular these days, also pretty hard. And now video and audio coming up. If you have a Tesla that has like, 8 cameras, it's very complicated. And then once you build a model, how do you deploy it and monitor it? How do you make sure it works correctly, that the world hasn't changed and the model doesn't make any sense anymore, or the data has changed and you need to retrieve the model? That's all a lot of hard work, so it doesn't stop when the model's trained and you have some nice metric and you're like, oh yeah, I'm done, I'll go home now, business is safe. It's not. There's still a lot of work there. And then this is like, and for the previous like deploying and monitoring, there's actually a whole area now called MLOps that gets more and more traction over the last couple of years. And another new thing in the industry is bias and fairness. So before it's like, yeah, we have a model that works great, but then, hey, like if you do loan applications, there are some protected characteristics. Like you cannot deny a loan based on race or like gender. Like there are a bunch of these characteristics. I think they're not in laws. So how do you make sure your model doesn't have any bias, or if it has one, which is very likely because the data we use is biased because we are biased. So how do we remove the bias? It's not trivial, both from a technical perspective and sometimes even understanding, hey, what's the bias nowadays? It's pretty hard. So I've seen this study that it says that you need around 17 months from start to break even in your AI investment. So that's a long time. So I would recommend, if you want to go this fast, start early. And no, it's not easy, but the output's also pretty big if you do things. That's it. Thank you.